Dueling rulings on the Obamacare tax credit setting the stage for its next legal challenge. And even the president's old law professor, Lawrence Tribe, says he, quote, wouldn't bet the family farm on Obamacare surviving. But could the nuclear option, as deployed by Senate Majority Leader Harry Reid, play a big role in all of this? Well, joining me now is Lawrence Tribe, professor of constitutional law at Harvard Law School. Great to have you on, Professor.
Great to be on, Gretchen.
All right, so you gave an interview a couple of weeks ago before these two court rulings came down yesterday. But essentially, you were predicting in your mind that you wouldn't bet the family farm on Obamacare surviving these legal challenges. Why?
Well, because there are a lot of judges who pay very little attention to the purpose of a law, the purpose to make health care affordable, and they pick apart the words in great detail, and I knew that given the judges who were hearing the case, there was a great likelihood that by a vote of 2-1, the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia would say that all the people who are on health care exchanges that were triggered by the states but actually run by the federal government in the 36 states where the federal government has acted on behalf of the states,
right,
that they would not be able to get federal help. When it gets to the Supreme Court, I sort of count 4 votes each way, and I think it's going to depend in the end on the Chief Justice. Now, he too was a student of mine, and I think he's got a lot of common sense, and he is not very likely, in my view, to take the language of the law, which says that exchanges established by a state are the ones on which people can get financial help, and emphasize that little word by. See, the Court of Appeals in D.C. said that if a state can't establish its own exchange, but asks the Department of Health and Human Services to take the burden on for itself, that kind of exchange is run on behalf of the state and for the state, but not literally by the state.
So we're parsing words, and I know that the, so it's the interpretation.
We're talking words, but it's, it's not literary criticism here. We're talking words that are designed to protect ordinary people, middle-class people, people who can't really afford.
Right. I understand. I understand.
Without government help.
There are people, sir, on the other side.
Should they be tripped up by what even the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals said was an unintentional gap in the language?
Okay, but there are other people who are criticizing your assessment of this and saying that maybe, in fact, you're doing something to influence the Supreme Court. So Michael Cannon, who's with the Cato Institute, he said this, quote, he's obviously trying to coach the Supreme Court on how to rule for the government here. He's also either ignoring or not aware of the legislative history, showing that Congress was considering all sorts of proposals that would withhold subsidies from states that didn't establish exchanges or do other things. So basically, he's saying you're trying to coach the Supreme Court, and you say what?
I say I wish I had that influence. Even when John Roberts was a student of mine, he had a mind of his own. I'm simply arguing that someone like John Roberts, who also has some common sense, is not likely to buy into an interpretation that holds a gun to the head of each state and says, if you don't set up your own exchange, what we're going to do is punish all of your people. We'll hold them hostage by withholding money from them.
All right.
That's the kind of gun to the head that John Roberts said made the Medicaid part of the Affordable Care Act unconstitutional, and that was a vote of 7-2. So I'm not coaching anybody. I'm simply trying to figure out what practical and intelligent people are going to say, and I think it's a close question. That's why I wouldn't bet my life on it.
Right. Well, you wouldn't bet the family farm.
Got a lot of common sense.
You said you wouldn't bet the family farm, and we'll have to see, because it's undoubtedly going to go to the Supreme Court. Professor Tribe, thank you so much, and we want to mention that Professor Lawrence Tribe is also author of Uncertain Justice, the Roberts Court, and the Constitution. Well, criminals can get desperate.